Hello, friends, and welcome to the Optimized Advisor Podcast, where we focus on optimizing the well-being and best practices of insurance and financial professionals today. On this show, our objective is to help you optimize your life, optimize your profession, and learn from other optimized advisors. I'm your host, Scott Heinela. We hope you enjoy the show. Good afternoon, Nate Raabe, co-founder and partner in RX3, correct? Okay, so tell me more about what that is. Tell our audience, enlighten the group here.
Yeah, thanks, Scott, first of all, for having me on. And as we were talking before, getting my pronunciation of my last name correct, Raabe, oftentimes confused with many other pronunciations besides that. But happy to be here.
Yeah, make no mistake. We fumbled through that together. So yeah. I appreciate your kindness and generosity in that.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, thanks for having me on here. It's been good.
So in my defense, for anyone's defense, it's spelled Raabe.
Yeah.
It could go multiple ways.
Phonetically.
Now, it's not any different for me. Heinela.
Yeah.
I get all kinds of things.
Yeah.
So we're in good company.
Actually, for being honest, I didn't even know how to pronounce your last name until you just said it right now.
There you are.
So,
Heinela.
Heinela.
Like vanilla and Heinz ketchup, but you kind of meld them together. That's what I try and tell people.
Heinela. Mine's like the disease, Raabe.
Okay.
And it's pretty easy. My wife's maiden name was Mildrew, so she was pretty happy to meet somebody and get married and change her last name, and she met a Raabe.
A Raabe. So, she shaved a few letters, maybe one or two.
Yeah, so we decided not to go with the Mildrew Raabe hyphenation.
So thank you for coming in.
Yeah, we're happy to be here. So RX3, was that the question of what is RX3?
What is RX3? Enlighten our guests.
RX3, yeah, maybe a little different than some of the other guests on your show. RX3, we're a consumer-focused growth equity fund based here in Orange County, California. Recently moved to San Juan Capistrano, and we invest in consumer growth brands where we can authentically provide value through our differentiated LP base. And I say differentiated LP base because we have a number of professional athletes and influencers that are actual investors in our funds, which is kind of very different than your traditional consumer growth equity funds.
Which we'll get into. I have a couple slides.
Okay.
Some conversation into that, which is a very unique take, but once you learn that and understand it, the metrics around that, it makes wonderful sense. I mean, what a great way to create a marketing engine and create internal awareness for your brand and what you're trying to accomplish without deploying a huge amount of capital, I would imagine.
Exactly. Yeah. It's kind of flipping the traditional model on its head where you have consumer brands that want to work with athletes and influencers. So they'll reach out to them, talk to their agents, and becomes very transactional, very unauthentic. We kind of said, I think there's a better way because everyone's so interested in investing these days, where we can align interests better by, hey, let's give you money for these. We have a bunch of athletes, influencers in the fund, and figure out how we can authentically help you because we're using the products on a daily basis.
I also want to talk a little bit, I'll make a note of this, but like the difference between a micro influencer and a macro influencer, and I don't know if that's the description, but there seems to be a little bit of shift within the industry of, too many becomes a little bit of a challenge.
Correct.
So how do you define that? And I would imagine certain business models cater to better suited for one over the other as well.
100%. Yeah.
So, but pause on that.
Wait, okay. So much.
So how'd you get to where we have a lot to cover and not a lot of time? Always fascinated about people's journey to get to where they are today. And I find a lot of value can be had in sharing of those stories. How does one get along this journey to where you are today? Yeah. Where do you start? Where do you cut your teeth?
So grew up in a small town, I guess not really that small, but Spokane, Washington, up in the Pacific Northwest is where I grew up.
Okay.
My dad was a physician. He always said, he's a small country doc, and he did some big things in the healthcare world. And so that always resonated with me as, hey, you come from Spokane and still, do things on a national level or, be successful beyond where you're from. Mm-hmm. Went to school in the Bay Area, Santa Clara University, go Broncos. Where I met my now business partner, Aaron Rodgers, who's quarterback for the Packers. He was at Cal, my college roommate grew up with him in Oregon when he spent some time there, and so I got to know him. So I've known him for 20 years. So that relationship's been there. Went from Santa Clara to where I started my first business called, it was kind of entrepreneurial, very, very young age. I always liked to do my own thing.
Okay.
And so I started a business that was actually called Vanishing Veins. And it was something that we own these vein centers, opened up a few in Arizona. But it was always in.
How old were you when you did that?
I started that when I was in college.
Okay.
So it was my senior year of college at Santa Clara. Wrote a business plan for a business class, ended up winning something and got a little funding and started doing that right out of school.
Okay, you were in the right place for that too.
Right, yeah, it was a
lot of money.
Good spot there, and it sounded great. You open up these vein centers, and we would help them with, even to this day, I don't even know what we were selling, but we opened a bunch across kind of the country in Arizona and randomly in New Jersey, and we just kind of wherever it kind of stuck. So I did that for a while, and then I was always in healthcare. I was in healthcare.
Okay, that was your niche.
Yeah, my father was a physician. He started a company called Safion, which is like a new treatment for varicose veins.
Okay.
Did some fundraising for that company. I was one of the first employees there, and so realized that I had an interest for connecting people and raising capital. Something that I was able to provide value at a young age to that specific company. And so I was with that company for about 8 years, doing different jobs from business development to international sales until ultimately was acquired back in.
You don't look a day over 40. And I'm not,
That's good. Because I'm younger than 40.
You are?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but the gray hair, usually with a beard.
Okay, good. You're not yet 40.
I don't know. I guess we might have video, but.
Let me restate that. You don't look a day over 30.
Yeah. I was like, thanks, Scott.
Well, 8 years.
Yeah. So,
that's a lot of runway already.
Yeah, is it? Yeah. So, and so I guess how I got here.
Because you also worked with Roth.
Yeah, with Roth. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I can tell that story too. I don't know time or if there's interest here, but
yes.
I went from Arizona, where we were doing these vein centers, and then my wife went to business school out in Chicago, in Evanston, and so we moved out to Chicago. So I was there for I think 4 years, and I was doing international sales at the time for this company Safion, which she was at business school, and then she worked for a venture firm out there. So we sold the company to Medtronic. We got pregnant with our first kid.
Okay.
And then we had a discussion of, hey, do we want to move back to Spokane, Washington, or do we want to move to Orange County, where my wife's from? And I say it was a discussion. I don't know if it ever really, the discussion happened. It was kind of like, we're moving to Orange County.
Yeah.
And so,
like I say, it's your house. I just live here.
Yeah.
To my wife,
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly how it is. So move out to Orange County, and in healthcare my whole kind of career, and it was great, but wasn't really passionate about healthcare.
Right.
And I think it's a great place to make a career, and thought about doing the physician route, but never really passionate about it. So I said, I think I wanted to make a career change, which at the time is, it's kind of risky, right, to make a total career change in what you're trying to do. But I think that's also why always been entrepreneurial, always wanted to kind of do my own thing. Mm-hmm. So I reached out to this guy, Byron Roth, and the only reason I knew him, I was in Arizona. We got introduced to him, and he's a guy that I asked to invest in this company probably about 5 or 6 times. The Safion company that we were raising money for.
Always no.
Always no. Yeah, never ended up investing. And we ended up selling, had a nice exit for our investors, and moving back to Orange County. Reached out to him and said, "Hey, Byron, remember when you didn't invest in that company? It actually worked out. You probably should have done that." And
that's great.
Just figuring out what I was going to do next. And he's like, "You know what? I'm really trying to do more on the private investment side at Roth Capital. Why don't you come in and kind of help me start that up?" So I was like, great. No background in banking or finance, that definitely sounds like something I'm interested in doing.
Jump at that opportunity.
Yeah, and so did that, and that's where learned a lot. Got all my licenses that you have to get for banking, and realized that kind of came natural on the investing side, which is good. And then, long story short, so I was doing that for about 4 or 5 years. We had what was called
working with Roth
Capital.
Okay.
called the Private Capital Group, where essentially it's like a merchant bank. We go out and find a company, and then we put in some partner capital, and then we go out and raise the rest through family offices and high net worth individuals and a bunch of athletes. And the athlete thing was always interesting because I've always had these relationships with athletes, and I saw the impact in the access that they could get in a specific deal when there was that authentic relationship. So I was doing this for a while, and it became very clear you get guys in, I know the audience is more kind of in the RAA and
investment advisors. Financial planners.
So everyone will kind of understand the transition that I saw is, a lot of these guys, we were doing a lot of earlier stage kind of deals. And I think the nature of early stage deals is the reality is majority of them don't work. If, there's going to be some, you hear all the success stories, and I think that's the big shiny red object that people go towards.
100%.
But the reality is it's very risky, and it's illiquid, and it's not an asset class that a lot of people should have a lot of exposure in. And so, but on the other side of this is, I saw the access to deal flow that we're getting by when we attach some of these athletes to different things. Aaron and I were doing a bunch of investing in a bunch of different companies, and we got some other people on the athlete side that were investing alongside of us and say, this is great, but I really need to have some liquidity before I can do more in the private space. So I said, I think this is a long-winded story, but this is all how RX3 came about.
Yeah, no, I love this though.
And so
how one goes from healthcare to caffeine, dog food, and yoga.
Yeah, there you go. And Manscaped.
and manscaping.
Yeah, exactly. So manscaping was always kind of the goal right now. So how it started is, so I was working with
hell of a business, by the way. I'm a customer.
Manscaped.
So Dollar Shave Club, Manscaping, or Manscaped. The product is it's a commodity basically.
100%.
But the branding, the verbiage,
Yep.
What comes in the package, the subscription business model, it's phenomenal.
Yeah, the founder is well sought after right now in terms of their DTC strategy and how they're able to do everything. They've really done a very nice job.
I mean, the foot deodorant. Who needs foot deodorant? But I use it.
Yeah.
They include it in the membership.
Now you can.
It's got a phenomenal little tagline.
Yeah.
All of it's half of my interest in being an avid fan is purely tied to their taglines.
Yep.
And the wordings that they assign to their product. It's comical, it's genius, it's inventive, it's wonderful.
That's how the consumer brands work, right? It's kind of, and that's one from a DTC standpoint that's done incredibly well, and we use that as a case study for a lot of our brands.
Yeah, we need more of those.
Yeah, we need more Manscaped or more similar DTC brands. I don't know how many I don't know.
Not Manscaped, more businesses that have
yeah, for sure. Those are the kind of
flourished the way they have.
Yeah, for sure.
In whatever walk of life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that was actually one. So just to close out how RX3 started, so we ended up left about 5 years ago, said, hey, I've always liked connecting people. You realize that business people are very infatuated with kind of the sports world, celebrity world. So I thought there's a way that if we kind of bring everybody together where we're all kind of on the same team and looking at brands and helping brands when there was that authentic relationship, that we could kind of create something special. So left Roth Capital, started RX3 with Byron and Aaron. So Raabe, Rogers, Roth is kind of the RX3.
Byron is CEO of Roth Capital.
Chairman, CEO of Roth Capital, correct. Right. Yep. And so he's like, hey, I think this is a great idea.
Also, I think part owner of the Phoenix Suns.
Phoenix Suns, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So last year we had two of the general partners of RX3 in the championship when it was the Bucks and the Suns there.
That's sweet.
Which is cool.
That's fun.
Yeah. I do not have an ownership in
those are fringe benefits.
Yeah.
That are basically priceless.
Yeah, exactly.
Kudos to you.
So anyway, we said, hey, I think there's an opportunity here to get a group together, get access to a lot of deals, don't have that inherent risk of early stage investing, but do more all growth stage investing and co-invest with well-known funds that we can kind of provide a different value than what they had with their operating partners and whatnot by activating different athlete influencers. So that's what we did 4.5 years ago, and that was kind of the genesis of RX3. So it went all the way from Spokane, Washington, to stint in Arizona, Chicago, and then now back in Orange County, sitting here with you today.
With you. Here we are.
So that's it.
And it's been a heck of a run.
Yeah, and I don't even look over 40, and that's because
shame on me.
Yeah, well,
shame on me.
Yeah, look.
In description of your resume, you have the experience of a 50-year-old, but
there
you're
we go. Now
you're hardly a day over 30.
Now we're trying to cover here, Scott. I see that.
I am exactly.
We're good.
So let's talk about there are interesting metrics that you guys have within just the world of the consumer economy, creating awareness through influencers and that whole marketplace. And maybe you could speak a little bit to that, of the access that an organization can have in terms of just networking through particular relationships that have influence with the world at large. Or is it very strategic of, no, this is an influencer or this is an individual that has specific benefits within the businesses or the marketplace that we're trying to execute in?
Yeah. So I'll kind of answer it.
Because your portfolio, I think, is very strategic in the sense that you can't be all things. It's like, well, first question is, do you invest in any type of business, or there's specific segmentations that you're looking to invest in?
Yeah. So our whole model is that we don't pay people, or we're not, the traditional model is kind of paying athlete influencers behind a brand. Our idea is, hey, we're going to invest, we're going to make money based on the success of the brand. There's opportunities to do endorsement deals and different things separate from RX3, but that authenticity is kind of what makes our model work. So we invest across the consumer spectrum and kind of health, wellness, active lifestyle type brands, because that's really where kind of our differentiated investor base can really help. Like, they're using Theragun every day, so Therabody makes a ton of sense because they're going to be using it when they're doing recovery, or Hydro, which is like a Peloton for rowing, which is doing extremely well. That's one that rowing, 5 years ago wasn't something that I think a lot of people were familiar with. Now you have the CrossFit, the Orange Theory, and a bunch of things that are kind of popping up. And rowing is now a big part of a lot of people's kind of workout.
Another silver lining within the pandemic, COVID as well, is
connected fitness has done
100%.
Yeah, connected fitness definitely has benefited from that.
And Hydro is also a subscriber business.
Yeah,
right?
subscription business. Yeah. So that does well. So we kind of look for, that's one of the factors that we look for when we're evaluating deals. But to answer your original question, alignment is everything. So it has to be a right fit. If you can't, I think you've seen a lot of examples where brands have tried to attach an athlete or an influencer to the brand where they don't authentically use the brand or product, and it just doesn't work. And I think now, today more than ever, consumers understand that. And so it's really important that you do have that authenticity. And that's what's nice about kind of our model of RX3 is we have a number of different athlete influencer type that if it doesn't resonate with one of them, there's somebody else that it probably does if we kind of, are doing our job right and investing in the right type of brands where we can provide value. So one category that, if you asked me when we started RX3, 4 years ago, that didn't think we would be able to help as much as we have been, is the pet space. Another category that's obviously done very well with the pandemic. The whole humanization of pets is something that is very real. I have 3 kids, and so my kids are asking for a pet. But if you anyone that doesn't have kids or even have pets, I think they understand you want what's best for your pet. So that's a category that's done very well, and we've been able to provide a lot of value in that category.
So one of those products in particular, by the way, I'm now, and it's not my house, I just live there. Nom Nom is feeding our dog, and she absolutely loves it. Will not be persuaded outside of any other food.
Nom Nom is great, and I know what you pay for that, and that's a premium. That's premium food for sure. And then we had a lot of people.
My wife would have no other choice.
We could eat Nom Nom. Went to the factory, and it's all human grade, and they just exited recently, which was publicly announced.
Okay.
Which was a nice return for us and our investors. But that's a category and a specific company that has done very well.
Okay.
Pandemic.
Okay, so RX, your Growth Fund 1, that's done.
That's done. We're
to new investors. We're now with Growth Fund 2.
Yep, Growth Fund 2.
And so how is that going to differ from 1, and also for some of our listeners who may have clientele, one of the reasons I've got you on here is to enlighten individuals on just how this type of investing works, because I guarantee you some of them are working with clients that would have an appetite for this type of investment and how they can work in this capacity.
Yeah, love it, Scott. Teeing me up here. This is great.
Yeah.
So we're done with Fund 1, as you said. Now we're going out. We've had 5 exits in Fund 1, so it's been going well. Out of the gates, we kind of told ourselves we don't want to do early stage investing because of the reasons we kind of talked about before, the inherent risk, very binary. And a lot of the investors that we have, first exposure to private investing, and you really don't want to, it's really important for us to show returns quicker than I think the traditional 7-10 year horizon for a lot of these private companies. So we kind of underwrite to 3 to 5x over 3 to 5 years is really how we look at it. So mid to high 20 IRR is kind of what we target. Fund 1, we are kind of on pace with the amount of capital that we've returned and the exits that we've had. And so it's showing that our model works because the access and kind of what we set out to do, which has been great to see. So for Fund 2, it is something that I think what's different about kind of our model is, especially for a lot of the investors that we have, is it's not, we're the products, we're the brands that they actually enjoy talking about. So maybe you have 5% or less of their allocation in a fund like RX3, but it's kind of cool to say you're investor in Therabody. You seem to really like Manscaped, Hydro, or whatever it might be, Orgain plant-based protein.
Yeah.
Our brands are just kind of brands that you can feel, you can touch, you kind of know what they are. There's not a lot
and like you said, fitness, health, wellness related.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's something that's not very on trend. Core Power Yoga is one that obviously great brand, had some challenges during the pandemic, but it's one that people are familiar with. And so it is the brands that we invest in, people understand. And
that's a perfect example of a business model that was, which there were many that were just no way around getting hit during the pandemic. But I would argue probably fast recovery now that things have opened up more. I mean, there's a huge appetite for, at the end of the day, it's human isolation is not good for anybody.
Yeah, for sure.
And there's a real hunger for activity, being outdoors. Obviously, yoga has its devoted followers and following. So I would imagine that the recovery curve is also pretty steep in a positive direction.
It is, and it has been, and hopefully we continue to see that. And I think, during the pandemic, you had companies that saw tailwinds and headwinds. I think everyone was affected in some, especially the consumer brands. We were fortunate most of ours saw some tailwinds with the connected fitness, with actually Manscaped randomly saw a lot of tailwinds. And now coming out, I think, the pandemic just kind of accelerated some of the trends that were going to happen. And so we're seeing them, like even connected fitness, I don't see that going away.
No.
Despite the Peloton stock, that's not indicative.
Oh, that's a whole separate conversation.
As the connected fitness market, and we kind of know that, and I think that's going to be around. I think people, understand there's some conveniences of working out and doing some stuff in your own home, but like you're saying, I think people are yearning to get back out there, which great transition into our first investment in Fund 2 is kind of an outdoor habitat camping company called Taxa Outdoors, which we're very excited about, which we just invested in with El Catterton.
Wait, so what's it called?
It's called Taxa, T-A-X-A.
Yeah, T-A-X-A. And that's the domain,
that's
right?
Yeah.
That's the website domain, TAXA.com.
TAXA outdoors.com.
I mean,
yeah.
Again, not anywhere near the analytics that you've gone through to get to the acquisition or the investment, investment, but in pouring through their website and reading through, hell of a model.
It's great. And it's, not going away. It's a category that's kind of been pretty, stagnant in terms of growth category. But I think now you're starting to see, there people want to be outdoors, and it's definitely a trend that's only going to continue.
Well, and laser focused to Gen Z, millennials.
Yeah.
I could tow one of those things behind my Tesla.
It's a cool product. It's
a very cool product.
Yeah. And it's, there's a lot you can do with it. It's very modular. They have a bunch of different options. So we're very excited to have that one. But that's talking about the trends and people wanting to be outdoors. It's very on trend, and we have a the excitement from a lot of our investors has been very strong from that type of brand. And that's one that, we have the ability to invest alongside groups like L. Catterton, TSG, and a lot of these bigger funds that like to bring us in alongside of them because we can provide that different value.
So I would imagine that there's a limit or a target amount of companies that each fund would.
Yeah.
There's a scalable to where there's our sweet spot.
Yep.
So for this, it's roughly, I would guess, 20 or so?
Yeah, exactly. So 5 to 7 million check size. Thing we learned in Fund 1 is the same amount of work, whether you write $1 million check or a $5 million check, in terms of how we go about vetting and diligencing and really try to provide value to those companies. So early, I guess, learnings from Fund 1 is we did a couple of onesie twosies where we invested maybe $1-2 million, and it's still a lot of work. And so we had some exits that they're great, but didn't maybe move the needle as much as they could have. And so we said, let's be really intentional to, when we do make an investment, let's lean in, provide all the resources that we know we can to really help that business and make more concentrated bets in areas that we know we want to be in, versus kind of doing some of these maybe ones that weren't maybe aligned with our original strategy out of the gates in Fund 1. But 5 to 7 million checks, dollar checks, and we're very active investor on the board. We take board seats when we can, and kind of all growth stage.
What are parameters that dictate that? Getting a seat on the board or not?
So earlier stage, so like growth stage, if we come in and a lot of times they'll, we're board observer on a few. They'll give us a board observer.
So life cycle of where the business is at.
Yeah, life cycle of business, check size, and really how involved we can be. Sometimes we don't necessarily need to be on the board if we come in alongside somebody that we work very closely with and we have information rights or whatever. But having that visibility really allows us to kind of activate our network and provide more value to the brand.
So out of sheer curiosity, just pure curiosity, a lot of athletes I see attach themselves to apparel brands.
Yeah.
For me, that's a very just concerning space because it just seems to be so competitive today.
Yeah.
And exceptional businesses that have grown to massive valuations. But I would argue there's probably also many, many, many who aren't.
Many more,
yeah.
Yeah, that aren't.
And I don't see in your portfolio, unless I'm wrong, there aren't any real apparel brands.
Yeah, well, I don't want to call you wrong, but there is one called Mack Weldon, which is...
I know that.
I think actually is all apparel.
Got it. But as part of one.
It's part of Fund 1.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. But great point, and that a learning that we had is apparel, they had good products, very popular in the Northeast, and it was a brand that people are familiar with, a strong DTC model. But a lot of our athletes have kind of deals with the Nike, the Adidas, the Under Armour, or whoever, and so they actually can't even wear or support or do anything because they're already kind of locked up in a category.
Correct.
And so that was something that you kind of, it's a little more challenging maybe than some of the other brands for athletes specifically because, they're obviously going to be more focused on the companies and the brands that they have endorsement deals and they actually have contractual agreements with. Where ours is more, hey, if you like the product, use the product, it helps us all. So it is, that's actually a great point. Apparel is a tough category for sure.
It's tough. And unless you're really intimate, I would think with that space, it's just, but I guess that would be applicable to anything probably.
Yeah.
What kind of workflow or pipeline does a company like yours have that you're reviewing and going through at any given time? And is there a percentage of how many deals make their way to the finish line? Yeah.
So we've been, early on when we Fund 1, we had the network and the relationships of Roth Capital that would kind of, a lot of feeders come through there. We had a lot of co-invests from some funds that we had relationships with and some athletes. And really what we found is as the life of the fund and our name has gotten out there, deal flow, we've been very happy with the amount of deals that are coming from all different directions, candidly, now that they kind of see that we can provide value and move the needle in a different way. So deal flow, we get it from our LPs, we get it from other funds, we get it from a lot of times we're more proactive now where we find a category that we want to be in and we know we can provide value. So we'll reach out to that brand and get on their radar and when they are ready or we'll front run a deal, whatever it is, because now we can kind of show that we can execute on what we say we can. So we are more proactive than maybe we were originally, where it's more reactive because we can be. Deals we see, the hardest part is trying to stay focused on what we know we're going to invest on, because we have so much inbound. You want to be respectful of the intros and the other opportunities. And you also want to make sure you can build a relationship. If a company is too early today, could be something down the line. And so you want to try to help them out any way you can, knowing it's not a fit for you today. So we see a lot of deals. Our team is, we have a very strong team. It's proactive and we get constant inbound. And so it's the criteria for getting across the line is very high, because we do operate more like a PE company than a private equity company versus like venture.
Yeah.
And so a lot of diligence that goes into it. And just because of the risk profile, we are more kind of PE growth than true venture.
Got it. Okay.
So we see, hundreds and hundreds a month.
So with the specific target sectors, this is from Fund 1, right? Food and beverage, beauty, personal care, health and wellness, household products, pet, retail, e-commerce.
Right.
In 2, is there any added categories, or is it pretty much the same? Like, let's just drill deeper and...
Yeah, it's kind of a model works. Let's just be kind of more focused on really only investing in those categories where we can provide value and we're not just a check. Some of the Fund 1 deals, we were just a check, and really want to be focused on we are differentiated capital. I think that's really how we can kind of scale this thing. We get asked if we do NFTs. We get asked if we do... there's all sorts of, sports media. There's just all different types of things. So our athletes are interested in that, or like the crypto. And we're just, we're really kind of focused on kind of consumer growth.
You have to be diplomatically respectful to acknowledge your
exactly
your expertise.
Exactly. And I'm not going to pretend to know that space. It's a young man's game, and it's something that it's constantly changing. We just don't know it. So we have good kind of advisors and people understand that we try to, if someone reaches out to us, especially our investors, we try to do whatever we can to help them out, either through a relationship or some sort of point person that we can provide value to them and to companies as well.
So it's important, I think, to mention that this type of an investment is for accredited investors, qualified investors only.
Correct. Yeah.
Do you have relationships with wealth advisors, financial advisors who maybe bring clientele and customers to you?
Yeah, for those that kind of understand our model, and absolutely. And most of the time, a lot of the athletes or a lot of our investors, it's word of mouth, right? So people with Fund 1, and they say, hey, we have really good experience. We're getting good returns. We like this group. It's a good category. There's a community side to this that I think is different than maybe some other funds. And one of these days, Scott, we're going to get you to attend one of our events if you stay in the U.S. long enough here.
We'll talk about that.
But yeah, I think absolutely. And it's a differentiated product, I think, than a lot of these other kind of private equity funds, just because of how we operate, the brands that we're in, and the community. So yeah, we're always looking for other new qualified investors. Now with the fund is open, we've had a lot of success with the kind of fundraising so far. But
75.
Yeah, for a first close, which we we'll keep the fund open here and getting some other hopefully get some institutional investors as well in the second fund, set ourselves up for hopefully long term.
Yeah. So talk about, experience. Well, let me back up a little bit. So we talk a little bit about the experience economy and with our audience and with us as a firm, trying to emulate that to our customer base. Is what's the experience that you want to create and provide to your clientele? What should the clients look at when they walk into your office? What do you want them to see? How do you want them to feel? What should they smell? What does your brand look like? All of that is very important, but also creating, experiential events and access to things that differentiate you in your practice from, every other advisor down the street, right?
Yeah.
Point in this is you have access to doing some pretty special experiences, and you've got one next weekend coming up, which, thanks for reminding me, make me feel, regretful that I can't be there, but a hell of an event.
Yeah. Yeah.
And playing into the whole athletes, and I don't know how you get all these guys to be there at the same time and give city slickers like us the ability to go out and play flag football. Some of these guys.
Yeah, I'm a city slicker as well. Spokane, Washington. So I think it's creating events and atmosphere that people generally want to be a part of, but don't feel obligated to be a part of, right? So I think anytime you force somebody to come to something or do something they want to do, that just everyone's natural instinct is it's an obligation. And so we really look to, when it's whether to our events and our community, it's like, hey, this is a really cool thing that you're a part of, and it's an opportunity and to be a part of, interact with other high-level people. And that's what you have, these very high-level successful business professionals with the athletes, with the kind of influencer celebrity world. Everyone's kind of intrigued by everybody else. And we look at RX3 as a safe kind of community and a network in a sense to interact with these high-level individuals in a different space than you are, but everyone's very driven, very successful in their own right. And I think what we found is when we kind of put the right people in a room together, special things can happen and people show up. And that's what we're kind of seeing that more and more and really leaning into that and being intentional with fun too, of being able to kind of activate and engage our community of investors.
So the event next weekend, real quick.
Event next weekend, charity flag football, which is something that we
How many people there?
It's a closed event. We're trying to get it right the first time. 8 NFL, 8 teams. Each team raises money for an individual charity. Has a NFL quarterback that's backing it.
That's fantastic.
And yes, we tried doing this a few years ago, and then literally 5 days before the pandemic had to shut it down. So we'll see. Hopefully it goes off as well as we think. But pretty excited about it.
Honestly, how hard was it to put together an event like that? Scale 1 to 10.
Yeah, I mean, we have a great support, great team. It's getting, you never really know with people's schedules and the type of people that we look to get there, who's going to show up. So you don't really know until the day of, okay, everyone's here that you wanted to be here. And there's, definitely some pressure there, but you can only do so much. And when you're there, what we found, the feedback that we get from these type of things is always very, very positive. So,
okay.
But a lot of prep that goes into any of these type of events. And we got a great team that kind of helps out. We're lean and mean, but we get the job done.
Yeah, seems like it. That's fantastic.
Yeah. So
next time I'll be there for sure.
One of these times. Yeah,
Son of a gun.
I think you're 0 for 3.
Son of a gun. No, shame on you. This is the first time I've been invited.
Oh, the Super Bowl one. You didn't go to that one.
Oh, no.
Yeah, the events. This will be our first inaugural and hopefully, first of many of the charity flag football.
Absolutely.
You see all these charity golf. We want to be a little bit different, do the charity football. So we're excited. So hopefully we're sitting here next time and we're talking about what a success it was.
Okay, so I'm going to switch to personal. 2 more questions. One, which I always ask this, clearly very driven, very busy within your professional life. You have kids.
Yep.
2?
3 kids.
3, okay.
3
5,
kids.
7.
And 2.
And 2, okay. Youngster.
2 boys and a girl.
Okay. What is if you have one, any recipes for success or best practices as it relates to time management, getting things done in your life, maintaining sanity, relationship with your wife, and also making time to do things for Nate?
Yeah. Marry well, because that makes everything easier.
Okay.
My wife is
marry up.
Marry up.
In all aspects, by the way.
Yeah, my wife's older, so I don't know how old you're gonna think she is. She's a month older. I always tell people she's a cougar. She's a month older than me. But yeah, have a great wife, and the balance is something that you have to be intentional with. It can be very challenging, but that's my
How do you do it?
So I try to a couple things with kids now. They're getting the age where they're in activities and they're doing different things, and so it can be very difficult sometimes to
100%.
To turn it off. And as for me, you're always thinking about work, especially when you're an entrepreneur and you have your business. You have so many people that you're counting on, managing people's money. There's a lot of kind of pressure that comes with that. But you also realize that the reason that I'm able to and the reason I am doing what I'm doing is because I want to make sure I can provide and be a good role model for my family. And so you do have to kind of take a step back and myself, and it's very hard to do, of like having intentional time. So even as, I do individual time with each of my kids, even if it's 10, 15 minutes where you don't look at your phone or whatever, and it doesn't sound like it's 10, 15 minutes, but it can be hard when you're driving and doing all that kind of stuff, especially as you're raising a fund and doing a bunch of different
Well, I think part
things.
of it is being very intentional with that time makes it exponentially valuable.
100%.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, with relationship with your significant other, so with my wife, we try to do a date night once a week.
You do.
We have great family help here. My in-laws I see them very regularly, and it's a blessing because we can go out and do a lot of the things I think a lot of people can't do if you don't have family
So
around.
is that a standing date night on the calendar?
Yeah,
for the most part.
If my wife will listen to it, she said, "Yeah, I've kind of pushed that more frequently than I think we'd like." Yeah, we used to have it every week, every Thursday we do a date night, and now we try to, depending on the day, it moves around. But having a date night where just the two of us go out and you kind of reset. It's crazy as it sounds. Like, well, talk to your wife about that when there's kids around and all that kind of stuff. It's very difficult to have that time of what's going on in your life. How are you doing?
100%.
And our kids notice it too when you don't have that. And so we really try to keep our foundation strong, and I think that kind of helps with everything else.
I think for a lot of relationships and marriages, and my wife and I have talked about this a lot, it's like, remember, the kids came after us.
Yeah.
And that's okay. In other words, we're the nucleus of this world that we're creating together. And so if we don't take intentional time to bring the nucleus together, then kind of the world begins to get distracted and fall apart.
100%.
And so taking that priority and respecting that as, not that it's priority one, but at that moment it has to be, and everything else flourishes from that. But it's hard. There's so much noise. There's so much distraction. There's so many things constantly being thrown at us.
Yeah.
And so I'm always interested in hearing from other people who, you're going 120 miles an hour, and how do you shift gears and down, shift to get into relaxation mode? It's not an easy task.
No, when I try to go on a family vacation, and vacation with 3 kids is not as relaxing, probably as relaxing as it sounds. But
no.
You need to do that. And I think just take time away. And I'm very fortunate because my wife is very involved with my work, very, very smart, and understands what I'm doing and contributes a lot. And so she's interested in what I'm doing, which is great. And she's in kind of a similar space, so we can
a good support system.
Great support system, which is why. Again, that's why we all do what we do, is for the family at the end of the day. So, yeah, very, very fortunate on that side. But yeah, it's tough for sure, balancing. Yeah.
Okay. Last question. Have you thought much about what your true vision of success is for RX3?
Yeah. So every day I get more excited about what we're building, just because of the feedback that we get from our investors, our brands, and I realized that we're just kind of, we started, I knew there was something there that I think we could create something, and every day as we continue to go, I just think that there's such a big opportunity because we are doing things the right way. We're doing things that are different, and we're creating a community that people want to be a part of all around. Kind of we're able to make thoughtful investment decisions and make people money. I don't have I wanted to definitely want it to be $1 billion fund at some point. In terms of when we get there, we'll see. But really think we're just getting started with the RX3 kind of platform and what we're building here.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
So it's
good for you.
It's exciting. And
you probably could have done ridiculously well staying in the health insurance space, but you made a very key point in that you just weren't passionate about it.
Yeah, you kind of got to be passionate about it. And that, if you it's just every day.
I don't think it works otherwise.
It doesn't. No, it doesn't.
It's not longevity.
Now look at it with entrepreneurs too. If you see entrepreneurs when we look at invest in a company, if they're not passionate about their business, they don't want to be there. It usually doesn't work out. So because there's a lot of ups and downs, even with your business, as and any your listeners, it happens. So I think being passionate and authentic with whatever you do, that's what I think a lot of most successful people have in common.
I hope everybody can find that in their lives, because you know what? You deserve it.
I love that.
Thank you for your time. It was good to see you.
Likewise.
Good to get to know you a little bit.
Likewise. This is good. Thanks for having me on.
We'll see you soon.
All right.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. Please subscribe, like, share, leave a comment or review. Be sure to check us out on social media at Optimized Advisor Podcast. Till next time.